was like a black man on the ground and then a white man, like both being handcuffed. And it was like, I don't care what color your skin is. If you break the law, you break the law. And she was telling me that people of color have been put in a position of being not in power for so long. And not only that, they were literally slaves and had nothing and weren't even allowed to vote, weren't even allowed to own, not even allowed to have a bank account for so long. So now they're in this position of just, yeah, I don't know, I don't want to use the wrong word, but they're just in a position of not good. And that's why I do think that there's still racism, and that's why I think that the country when I say the country's built on racism, that's kind of like what I mean, part of it.
So I agree, that for a very long time this country was racist. There was slavery, there was segregation, there was Jim Crow, there was all sorts of terrible racist policies that were in place. But I also, the problem that I think we have a lot of times, we always recognize the bad and we never recognize the good. So it's very easy to say, look, the country was once racist. We have similar policies to then. Our country is ran similar. It's capitalism. It's, democracy, same systems that we had a long time ago. And there's this something that's built into it that's automatically racist. But the truth is, from all that time in between, we've done so much good too. And there are, and like you said, there are people of color.
Good for kind of evening the
correct.
The game.
Yeah.
Like what?
I mean, like we could talk about anything. I mean, government
to make it more fair.
Yeah, to make it better, to help people that are in these needs.
But how?
So, like when there's certain people that are going for jobs or they're going to apply for schools or colleges, minorities they have to have a certain percentage of minorities in there, which that. Be right back. Hold on. Hey, I'm sorry.
You're good.
You there?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Yeah, so I mean, there's so many different ways that we've helped, because we've recognized that people of color have been in through these racist times, and they have actually, they haven't been able to do the same things that white people have been able to do. So we've made laws, policies that help all sorts of people, that help people of color even more under some circumstances when it comes to getting a job, applying for schools. Like there's many different ways that we've helped people of color so that all Americans can grow evenly. I don't have the same chance of getting a job or getting into a college as some minorities do, and that's just the truth. There's certain grants, there's scholarships that are only there for minorities and not for me.
But I don't really think I think that can also be a bad thing at times. It kind of is just like canceling out the racism by being like, oh, well, now we have more minorities at our school. I don't know. It just.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of agree with you, but then I'm like, so what do we do? Like, what if you don't give back? Like, what do you do?
Uh-huh.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's America's way.
Well, I think. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
Go ahead. You're good.
I think it's really important to listen to people of color and their experiences, because when you say something like racism doesn't exist anymore, well, no, that's not what you said. Racism isn't really in America anymore. Is that what you said? Yeah. So when you say something like that, it's like it's wrong, but also like it's harmful because it's wrong. And I think it's important. So like me as like a white person, like, yeah, like I haven't experienced racism in America like firsthand, but it's Sorry.
No, I understand what you're saying, and
But I think I think that's kind of really harmful because there are a lot of people that do experience racism, and I think it's important to just listen to people of color and their experiences and learn from that, you know?
well, I mean, there definitely is racism. I would never say not racism. I think I lost you for a second. There's definitely racism everywhere, and there will always be racism. Unfortunately, you know, we're human beings, and everybody's got their own opinions, and no matter what we do, we can never get rid of racism. That's like trying to get rid of murder or get rid of stealing. Like obviously, there's going to be crime, there's going to be racists, and we need to continue to fight against them. And people of color should absolutely have a say. And I think that you know we've created laws that make those sort of situations much more severe than usual. Hate crimes are, you know, we make it so that if somebody is racist and commits a crime against you in a racist fashion, it's a severe crime. It's not a regular crime. This is a federal crime. Like you will probably do time. Like this is again, like there are many different ways, and this is where I think it gets
Are
cloudy.
you talking, sorry, you're talking about like um George Floyd and like the Ahmaud Arbery killers because that was widely publicized. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Of course, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't. No, I'm not.
So with that, I think specifically with the Ahmaud Arbery case, what do you think about that?
I think two racist guys thought this
Do you think
black
it was handled? Do you think
thing,
it was handled the right way
and
because
they,
of
yeah,
because
I think
you brought that up with, I don't really know where you were going with that, but you brought that up with how there's
I
less
didn't.
racism.
I didn't bring up Ahmaud Arbery.
No, you brought up people that commit like a hate crime,
Right. So what I'm
hate
saying is
homicide.
we've created a system where racist crimes are more severe than normal crimes, which is a good thing. I mean, if people commit a crime against somebody due to the color of their skin, we then we then charge them with a much harsher crime than a normal crime.
I
So
I don't.
that's a good thing.
Well, yeah, obviously that's a good thing, but there's also a lack of, and this is just me, like, I mean, you know, you learn more every day, but I learned that like there's just a lack of representation. Do you know about, there's a new case that's kind of come to light. There was a woman who was hanging in her garage. I don't want to like say anything graphic to like, you know, but she was hanging in her garage and her Bumble date, this is just one example. Her Bumble date like was very suspicious. He had a lot of suspicious behavior, and she wasn't found for several days. There was a really weird poster on her front door, and the case was not investigated, period, for months. And it took a lot of public attention just to get that investigated. And I saw a video, and I know it's like, oh, you're getting all your facts from TikTok. Like, I know that's stupid. But saw a video, and this girl was talking about it. She was comparing it to the Gabby Petito case and how widely publicized that was. And I didn't agree with everything she was saying because I thought it was a little bit like disrespectful to Gabby Petito the way she was saying it. But um, that's just like one example of how there's a lack of representation for people of color literally when they're being killed, and that most definitely could have been a hate crime against this woman, and it just wasn't investigated,
Well,
you know.
I don't know about the internal investigation. I don't know about the story either.
You not know what I'm talking about with the Bumble date?
No, I didn't even hear about it, but I'm gonna check it.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but I mean, you're talking about experience. So, for instance, I could say to you, there was a crime, there was a murder mystery that happened to a family member of mine, but nobody knows about that. How come they knew about Gabby Petito, but they don't know about my family members? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, just my family member's white. So like now it's not racist because it was another white person, but my family member went through the same experience. So
Did
now,
they?
well, no, I'm not saying, but there are definitely cases there are definitely white people murder mysteries that,
Okay, but that's just,
you know,
but you're just saying that with nothing to back it up. That's just a little weird because are you just saying that there is not a lack of representation for specifically Black women and when they're murdered?
I honestly I don't know the data on it.
Okay.
There might be. I'm not
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Um, well, I just want to preference that we're talking about this because when we were talking about racism in America, you did bring up like hate crimes and stuff like that. So I am learning about that. I'm definitely not super educated with that, but I feel like they're just learning more and more every day. There is huge lack of representation for people of color that have been killed, and especially women, people of color.
You know, I
So, but going back, circling back to the Ahmaud Arbery case, I do want to say that that's just like another example of this huge, a lot of racism in our country. I'm so bad at talking. I'm sorry.
okay.
Um, but the fact that that was first of all caught on camera, and there was a lot of body cam footage that was super. When the police got there, they were all white, I believe, and he was alive. Ahmaud Arbery was like just like gasping for breath on the ground, and they got there and literally like did not help him for so long. And I feel like that's just obviously that's disgusting and awful, and it's another example of racism in America, specifically with like hate crimes. And then after that, they were not arrested for I think it was nearly a year. It was horrible, you know. So when you say that we're not living in a racist country, how is that true? If
Again, though, you're speaking about experience. So, like, um, there's, I could, it's personal experience, which you can mention, you can use it as potential as a debate, but there's
right,
no,
that's one
there's
thing.
no fact that that's what happens everywhere in America. That happened in one incident in America right there. So, I
Okay, well,
mean,
do you agree that there's racism in America? A lot of it?
again, when you say things like a lot of it, or what are we measuring with? I mean, at the end of the day, is there racism in America? Of course there is. Like I said before, there's going to be racism everywhere in every country forever. Like there's nothing anybody could do to make there zero racism. I don't think it's as I guess prevalent as it once was. I think, and I'm not even speaking slavery segregation. I'm talking about
Hey, Hannah. Sorry, I love this girl. I love Hannah. Hi, girl.
we've seen significant. Oh, your friend John. We've seen
Yeah.
significant. We've seen significant progress from even the 90s. You know, like where I could in the 90s I could argue of some racism that was going on. As we got into the 2000s, and now we're in 2022. It's just it's not as often. It doesn't happen. We don't see these situations occur as often. And, you know, again, we don't recognize the positive that happens for the Black community. You know, we don't recognize the positive that's happened for people of color. We only focus on the bad. And that's why you keep mentioning, you know, these individual stories and saying, well, this story proves that there's racism. Well,
So
I can say that, you know, Donald Trump giving billions of dollars to historical Black universities, that's that's proof that there's not racism. And like we could do that, we could go back and forth all day long about whether there's racism or not in the country. I do think that there's racism in the country, so I'm not completely disagreeing with you. The Ahmaud Arbery situation, I don't know about the cops. I do know that the two guys that killed the Ahmed were,
right,
they were definitely racist. I mean, I would assume so, at
and the
least
other
from
guy.
all the evidence that I saw. Oh, there was two other. Yeah, I'm sorry, the three guys. There was two other guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um. So, but don't you want to? I feel like. So, do you think it's like a problem when I say like that America is a racist country? You want to focus like, because you don't. You're not. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. You're not like acknowledging that, but you are acknowledging like that there is racism in the country, but you don't want to say that it's a racist country, just like in general.
well, because I mean, again, there's going to be racism in every country. There always has been, and there always will be. So, what determines a race? country. I think that if there was slavery, if we were back in slavery, then we would be a racist country. Segregation, I think we were a racist country at that time. But when I'm speaking about today in 2022, when opportunities are equal, and there's so much policy in place that helps people of color if they're in struggling or severe circumstances, that doesn't necessarily always positively help white people. I think that we've done a great job to kind of rid the country of as much racism. I don't want to say as possible, because I think we continue to do
So you
more.
do think that there's like work to be done?
Always. I mean, there's work
Okay.
on every, and racism is another one. Yeah, of course. This is the thing. I don't ever want to not talk about racism, because I want to make sure that everybody recognizes it, notices it, realizes our history, because that's the most important thing, is the history, and we have to make sure that we don't repeat it. So, that's what's most important for me.
Okay, well, I think it's a little bit, I do think that it's a racist country. I can understand why some people would think it's problematic to say that, because it's like a lot of people really like America and they want to just like love it so much. Unfortunately, like it is kind of like a fucked up country, and saying that there's racism in America is a little bit different than saying America is a racist country.
Correct.
I certainly think it's a racist country because of the way what it was built on, and all of that. Like we were talking about earlier, and the situations that are currently going on, and the way that they were investigated. So, like, going back to like that one specific, you don't want to talk about certain specific things. Sorry, uh, but the way that it was investigated, like, what do you think about that? Like the fact that it took two DAs to even charge it. The case. Does that not give you like an icky feeling and make you feel like we are living in a racist time?
Again, there's going to be racists. There is. So, yeah. How do I feel about that? I feel like, I think that they knew the suspects, right? Didn't they? Wasn't it that somebody knew?
I think it was the first DA that did know him, and then she excused herself like right away, and then there was another one, and there were months that went by that he did not charge them. He never did.
They were like with them, right? So I don't see that's not racist. That's a conflict of interest. Definitely an issue. Shouldn't have happened that way, and somebody should be held accountable for it. But it's not racist. It's the reason that he didn't do it wasn't because Ahmed was black. The reason he didn't charge them or bring them in is because he was friends with them. So, I mean, that goes the racist.
Okay. I see where you're coming from, and I want to just say, like, once again, I'm really not educated on a lot of things. I'm young, I get that, and I'm not
Cool.
all knowing. I don't want to come across that way. I'm learning every day. But I don't know. I think that is another like one case that's very disturbing. So I don't know. There's really more to talk about that. What? I
There's
actually
going to be plenty.
have COVID. That's funny. Someone said that. I do have COVID. What were you saying? Sorry.
I've had COVID twice, so don't worry. There's gonna be a lot more situations that occur just like that. So, the area that I'm from, there's a mall not too far from here, and I think it was back in like 2008 maybe, or something like that. There was a black man. He waited in the stairwell, and he stabbed and killed some elderly woman, white woman. When they asked him why he did it, he said, because she was white. I wanted to kill a white woman because she was white. So again, like that's an experience. That's one situation. That's one circumstance. I can't use that one situation to prove that America. That's like me saying, look, that happened. So America must be racist against white people. But I can't do that. I can't do that. Others situations like that too.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I kept saying that I'm really kind of interested in the criminal justice system. So that is kind of a weird example to say that America is racist in general. I think a good example would be so many things. One being Trump. I know that's like gonna go into a whole new thing, and how he was even elected in the first place. But
I love
there's
this.
just
Somebody made a comment said, "When have either of you experienced racism?" Like, you know,
yeah, no, I've never experienced racism, so it's kind of a weird thing for me to even be talking about.
I get it.
But I feel I
Are
completely disagree with you. You know what I mean?
are you from a diverse community?
No. Well,
Right.
I back and forth a little bit, but I'm gonna be honest, not really.
So, I mean, it's going to be difficult for you to have experienced racism if you don't really have many other people of color living around.
Yeah, and so until I didn't really know a lot until kind of the BLM movement started to become more prevalent, and I learned more about it, and that about systematic racism and how awful that is, you know what I mean? And I feel like being a white person and coming on to a live stream and saying that, talking
Well,
about how there's not a lot of that, how we don't live in a racist country. Do you think that there's systematic racism?
I do, but I also think that we've done a good job to legally and lawfully kind of take systemic racism and turn it around as best as possible. And again, like,
But
making.
not as best as possible.
I think we've done the best we can so far. I think we have. And again, we still have more of a fight to go, and as the years go on, we'll continue to fight. But I think America has done the best that they've absolutely can so far. I mean, you could look at the difference from 20 years ago to today. There's stuff that's being canceled from 20 years ago because they made some stereotypical joke or something. Little things, people that are being canceled just because they said something 20 years ago. We've made significant strides. I actually think we've made significant strides, kind of in the wrong way too. Like, we've gone up, but in the wrong way. Like, we've gone left because, well, we've gone left. But um, I think we've done too much. I think the progressive
So yeah,
movement
well,
has.
stuff in TV shows and stuff like that is not systematic racism, really. Um,
No, I'm aware. Well, I mean, Hollywood we consider to be systemically
I know
racist.
what you're talking about with the stereotypes. Even when I first learned about that, I was like, oh, why does it even matter? Like, shouldn't you be able to wear this and this and this? You know what I mean? Celebrities like going to the red carpet in like a stereotypical like something.
Look,
But you learn about it and you realize why it's wrong and stuff like that. And yeah, so there's a lot of like extreme social justice warriors that like are a little bit too extreme with that kind of stuff. um Especially when they're white, it's like you don't even know what you're talking about. But
I think
the
you personally, though, as you continue to get older, you need to be careful with some of the things some of the views that you have. And the reason why I say that is because you believe that people of color are such victims in America that you victimize them, which really means you're treating people of color differently because you feel that they are victims. And
that's
that
not true. That's not true. That's not at all true. I would not put it that way at all.
but I'm saying from the way you're speaking, that's what I'm saying. Like, by the way that you're speaking, you victimize people. And when you victimize people, you're ultimately having like a sympathy for people. And most people in this country, most people of color in this country are individuals. They are more than capable of doing everything that white people could do. So you need to have the understanding that you're going to offend somebody because they're going to turn around and go, I don't need you to victimize me. I don't need you to go around saying that I'm a victim.
Yeah, I get that it's a little bit, me being a white person talking about this can be a problem. I don't usually talk about this. I just try to learn more about it. But me saying that there's racism in America and that there's systematic racism and that there's a lot of it and that we live in a racist country, that's not me victimizing people of color. That's not me treating them differently at all.
Well, you are. Who's the victim of systemic racism?
Yeah, but that's not me. That's not the word I would use, and no, not at all.
Well, somebody that's being
Do you agree?
somebody.
You said that you agree that there's systematic racism and racism in the country in America. That's not you victimizing people of color. That's you just the truth.
It is, but
That's
I said,
acknowledging the truth and people's experiences.
well, again, so when you're talking about personal experience, you have to be careful when you're talking about personal experience, because personal experience is not fact. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean that that's true, doesn't mean that it happened that way, doesn't mean that it was perceived the way that everybody would perceive it. So personal experience is somewhat of a bad argument, but I understand when you sympathize with somebody when they tell you about a personal experience. The problem that I'm telling you is that when you're saying that there's definitely systemic racism, there's so much that we have to do to help people of color. People of color have done well, will continue to do well. They can do everything that everybody else.
Do you think it's a problem that needs to be addressed?
Systemic racism?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's been addressed. So I think we've defeated most of the problems that we have systemically that are racist within our system.
Okay, well, I'm about to leave. I'm gonna be honest that I do not, me acknowledging the amount of racism in here in America is not me victimizing.
Well, I mean, if
color. And that makes me a little uncomfortable, so I'm going to leave. And I do agree that me being a white person is weird talking about it. That's why I don't really talk about it. But I also think it's important to, I'm going to say it again, listen to people of color and their experiences and like how much racism there is and what they have to go through. And you being a white person would not know that, like don't experience that. So I know I'm not super educated on it, so yeah, right. But I'm gonna leave. I do disagree with you, but thanks for having me and being.
Thank you for joining. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good conversation. Mm-hmm. Take care.